Their hard stance is you can do what you want and whatever you feel on the inside is your truth. His hard stance is that's nonsense. They're both dogmas.
Camilla, Karime, thank you for sitting down. You were outside of the auditorium with the protesters of this speech. Why were you protesting?
Ruslan.
I got to give it up to Michael Knowles. I don't agree with him on everything, but man, Michael Knowles sat down with the protesters that showed up to his event and listened to them and articulated beautifully and did a great job. I wanted to react to this because I think there's a lot here about how to disagree. We often can disagree and can get super angry and allow ourselves to be misrepresented. But this man, how he disagrees, I think there's a lot to learn. Let's take a look here.
Speaks on a college campus, anything can happen.
We're not gonna fucking eradicate anyone!
Outrage boiling over at the University of Buffalo.
Mr. Knowles calling for an eradication of transgenderism is a call for genocide.
Hundreds of students and community members gathered in protest.
Do you have anything else to say?
Chanting, picketing, and some even needing police restraint.
You want to tell me why I should leave? Because transphobia is beta behavior, and you are a beta male. You should leave.
Get out, man!
No,
I'm serious. Get out.
So what would cause a liberal lynch mob to attempt to shut me down and intimidate attendees before I uttered a word?
Yo, this is kind of horrifying that like these folks who are, thinking that people are trying to wipe them up were showing up to these events on this sort of energy. It's pretty wild.
You fascist? You look like one.
Do I?
Yeah. You know, we asked you a few questions.
No, I do mind. Thank you.
What?
My producer attempted to find out why so many people seemed hell-bent on keeping me out.
What brings you out here today?
There is a extremist speaker that is speaking at UB tonight.
I have some
Extremist speaker. I didn't know this stuff was this bad until one of my good friends sat me down and told me he thought I was fringe right because I am pro-life. When a buddy of mine told me this and said he thinks I'm fringe right because of that, that's when I'm like, oh, yo, the goalpost is moved.
gender friends, and they were really hurt by a lot of the news and a lot of what was happening. I wanted to stand with my community.
I think you just perpetuate hate towards lots of people that don't deserve it.
Oh, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I think you're mistaken.
This many people are here because they don't believe in that hate. They don't want to continue the hate. We're here because we want to drown out the noise that he's making.
Have you ever watched one of Michael Knowles' speeches or seen his show in its entirety, not just one of the clips?
I have not, no.
Isn't it interesting when you go well, have you actually heard this person out? You go, no, I haven't heard it. No.
I don't need to, though.
College students are often uninformed. That's why they're in college. They're supposed to get educated. But it seems they all had the same reason for hating me specifically. For the good of society, and especially for the good of the poor people who have fallen prey to this confusion, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely.
Now, he knew what he was doing with that, right? And he's going to explain himself here, but I think he knew what he was doing. I think he wanted a moment that was going to go viral. This is a CPAC and saying genderism needs to be eradicated. Instantly taken by the media to say eradicate, as in, take out these people. He knew what he was doing here. He knew what he was doing. And he clears it up. He clarifies, but how much of this poking is worth it?
I have seen some of his comments about the trans community specifically.
Saying that trans people should be eradicated from...
You see how easy that was to take and misconstrue it? And so my question is the juice worth the squeeze with regards to this? Can we speak against an ideology without sounding like we're speaking against people, or is it inevitable? This is an honest question I have.
Our communities.
You shouldn't be saying that they should be eradicated if you have never been in their shoes. Can I just tell you, we're not going to fucking eradicate anyone?
That lady looks scary.
You guys.
I don't want to eradicate anybody either.
He does.
Now, where could they have gotten that idea?
Numerous headlines after this speech.
Speaker calls for transgender people to get eradicated. Yeah. Did he kind of walk into that, though, himself? Honest question.
Said he wants to get rid of transgender people.
Basically just calling for the eradication of trans people.
Literally calling for a genocide.
Genocidal call. What else could you possibly mean besides getting rid of those people?
Now, that was all news to me. I never considered myself a particularly genocidal kind of guy, but that's what the news said, had been intentionally lying about.
Were they intentionally lying? I mean, you made it easy for them, though, to be fair, Michael.
What I said. The university administration dug in its heels and did nothing to correct the record before my speech. Instead, the administrators doubled down on the defamation. Unfortunately, the university only allowed 300 people to come listen to this speech, even though about 1,000 people tried to get tickets. Now, among those who got in, there were a lot who liked what I had to say, but there were even a few who came in prepared to disagree with me. And they sat down not just to hear the speech, but sat down opposite me to hash out our differences in person.
Hey, you want to see something crazy? 67% of the people who watch this channel are not subscribed. Do me a quick favor, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date on all the videos here on the Blessed God Studios channel. Kudos to him for sitting down with these folks, man. And I think, again, he does a great job demonstrating on how to have these conversations.
When one calls to eradicate cancer, one is not suggesting that we ought to murder the cancer patients. So how did these liberal news editors come up with their headline that I wanted to commit a genocide of transgender people? Freedom itself cannot exist without limits. The question before us is not how free our society ought to be, but rather what will delineate the limits of freedom.
Yep.
Becca, thank you for sitting down.
Of course.
Camilla, Karime, thank you for sitting down. You were outside of the auditorium with the protesters of this speech. Why were you protesting?
I was genuinely wondering how a man is going to explain how radical feminism is hurting women.
Interesting.
Did I convince you?
No, not really, no. I think you
So this is after his speech.
brought up some good points on like how there are certain types of feminism that aren't great because there's always a radical something that's not good. There's always going too far and doing too little.
At least that she can acknowledge that he brought up some good points. I think that's awesome.
Saw your like poster also, and I was like, oh, it's just like, you know, like another speaker just coming in and like talking. And then I started saying like should be eradicated. And as you know, eradicated it's a big word, you know, and
Yeah, eradicate, it's 5 syllables.
This was a troll.
yeah, but you know, it could like be taken into like different things, like, you know, like to destroy and everything like that, and like to get rid of, which I think that's where you were going with.
That is very
to
much, yeah.
Get rid of.
Yeah.
I have some like transgender friends, and they were really hurt by like a lot of the news and like a lot of like what was happening. I wanted to like stand with my community.
My argument is not, as some newspapers very irresponsibly reported, that I want to, you know, exterminate people or something. But my argument is that this whole idea of transgenderism is pretty new. You both have friends who identify in this way. There are many more people, right, who say, I am transgender. And so my question is, why are so many more people saying that now?
It's a great question. It's a great question.
You said that like this, like being transgender is this new ideology.
Yeah.
It's not. There's evidence of people who were transgender in ancient Greece, Rome. Judaism is an example of a religion that acknowledges, I think, 6 or 7 genders.
I don't think that's quite true.
6 or 7 where's she getting these sources from? Where's she getting these sources from? Now, hypothetically, let's say that they were folks in Greece that cross-dressed. That's not the same thing.
And my evidence for that would be in the very first book of the Torah, in Genesis. One of the most prominent lines is that in the beginning, God created man, both male and female created he them.
It's not but Judaism. I think what the original translation, I can't cite my source right now, okay? But from what I've learned going to...
That's literally the Torah. That's the first 5 books of the Bible. Come on.
Different like religious schools is that
Jewish schools?
Just synagogues, temples. I've tried and like experienced different religions. They said that the original text said Adam and Eve as in one being, one.
Well,
like,
man. So in the earliest chapters of Genesis, you have the creation of man in Adam. And then Eve is created from Adam's rib, but she would be the other sex. What you're citing is this line that a lot of people who are pro-transgender will say, which is, you know, actually in some Native American tribe that I can't quite name right now, I'm sure they believe in a 3rd and a 4th and a 5th gender, but that just isn't true. That is that's been made up by white liberals.
You know.
Whoops.
Movie Mulan, Disney
I
Mulan?
haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
Mulan, dresses as a man, right, goes to war. That's based off of true history.
Oh yes, cross-dressing has occurred in
just
history.
cross-dressing, but people who
in
went
Mulan, did the female character think she was a man? No. Oh.
Why there's so many spikes and like people saying that they're transgender is because people are much more comfortable now, like going out and saying that they're like transgender because they know that there now is like that community that will accept them.
What if they're not really comfortable though? There's a guy who pioneered the transgender surgery at Johns Hopkins. His name is Dr. Paul McHugh. And he created the Gender Identity Clinic, and he gave these experimental surgeries to men who thought they were women. And he ended up shutting it down because he said people were not more satisfied in the long run after the surgery. Is it possible that people...
If you wanted to go do some of your own research, check out the study on the longest study post-op with regards to this happening, I think in Sweden is where they ran it. You can go look at the study, you can look at the numbers, and it's wild. This does not seem to be a net positive experience if we're talking decades, if we pull the horizon out. Okay, and so he's quoting this doctor who's saying that he also discovered the same thing.
People expressing this trans identity is not really making them all that happy?
No. Okay, male transitioning into female. So my aunt, she was never happier than she was after she transitioned. So she's happy, like she's living her life now that she's transitioned. And you know, it's like, you never know. Like, what if they can't feel that way if they stayed how they were?
Do you think that the person you now call your aunt, do you think that, I would say he, really is a she, it really is a woman? Or is it just kind of a little bit of a white lie that we all tell to make this person feel better?
Yo, this man is wild.
No, I think it is, you know, like I think they actually are like female. You know, I think there's just some people out there that are just born in the wrong bodies.
Can I ask you a question though?
Please,
Like,
yeah.
do you have kids?
Yeah.
Hypothetically, right, saying like if your kids want to transition and they tell you like they don't feel like how they,
Yeah.
how would you respond?
Well, I would hope that the likelihood of that happening would be greatly diminished because I would not be raising them in a culture that would encourage it. And so we do see it, even if you think that there is a biological component to this gender identity ideology, we do see that in communities and ages that are more encouraging of it, you see the numbers of gender identity cases skyrocket. So I think
White liberals.
I think the fact that we're raising our children in a more traditional kind of environment would at least reduce the possibility. More than 1 in 5 Zoomers identifies as LGBTQ+. That's about a 10-fold increase over the general population.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously this is catching on.
Because now they can.
1 in 5 people is just born that way. You don't think there's any social contagion?
I, again, can't cite the exact source. In my biology class here in the school, we learned that there are some biological indicators for gay men. They have a smaller gland in their brain that shows up on scans.
Even if that were the case, that wouldn't change the way that we necessarily ought to behave. The way that we are born does not imply that we are slaves to our nature, because
this man Mike was dropping gems. Just because you're born that way, quote unquote, does not mean you have to always act that way, right? Or act upon your impulse. And so even if some men have a different layout of their brain or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, they are to always act upon however their natural proclivity is. Hey, you may not know I make music, but I have a brand new song that just came out. Here's a quick preview.
In a moment, I gotta overcompensate by building tabernacles while the world is rubbernecking. Eve wanted an Adam's apple. Whoa there. Why you wanna go there? Time to shut the door, cause we letting out all the cold air.
Yo, Double R back, baby. It's not for Rolls Royce, it's for Rap Ruslan. Let's get it.
So hit the link in the description or go to RuslanToTheMoon.com to stream now. I'll see you over there.
Why you wanna go there?
human beings, unlike the lower animals, have intellect and will. And so because we have a rational will, we can actually curb some of our appetites and bring them into accord with our rational will, which is conscious. Let's say, God forbid, that my kid has any problems, one of which is he struggles with his view of sex or gender. Probably what I would tell him is, hey, love you, buddy, but this is reality. And so I would try to ballast my kids, or any loved one that I have, in the truth. Because there's a great quote from C.S. Lewis on this. He says, if you look for truth, you might find comfort in the end. But if you look for comfort, you will find neither truth nor comfort, only soft soap and wishful thinking to begin, and in the end, despair. Despair because you got nothing to hold on to.
That C.S. Lewis quote is a gem, man.
Other than your own fleeting passions.
Sheesh!
I have lots of trans friends.
You have lots of friends who think they're the opposite sex.
I have lots of friends
But
who
what if they're
identify
mistaken
as
about
trans. What?
What if they're wrong? What if
you're wrong about being straight?
I guess I would still behave as though I were straight. My view of sex and gender is that our true sexuality and our true gender is not from some deeply hidden and authentic appetite that might be invisible to the public, but is actually prescribed according to our human nature.
But who are you to tell people that they're wrong?
Well, I'm a man with reason and a moral conscience.
And I am a woman with reason. And I think it's not...
Wait. She can't be serious that she's acting as reasonably as he is.
not my place to tell somebody that what they're feeling is wrong.
You just told me that I'm wrong about transgenderism.
Whoops!
This is a sickness of the highest order.
Why aren't we consistent in this? Why are we never consistent in this? Tolerance, inclusivity, except for you Christians.
I'm saying how we all choose to live is our business because we live in society.
Why is it my business if somebody identifies as a woman or not?
Well, because right now women are allowed to have their own bathrooms.
Hello.
And if a man is allowed to identify as a woman in public, women are not allowed to have their
Do
own
you know a man can just walk into the bathroom at any time, right?
But he'll be arrested in a normal society.
Yep.
In our society, he could sue if he were kicked out of the women's bathroom.
People aren't just identifying as trans to look up girls' skirts.
Well, some people are. Some people.
The whole exchange is anchored on him being wrong. That's what they're disagreeing about. So she didn't have to overtly say, you're wrong, in order to say that her dogma is superior. Please don't, guys, let's not act like this isn't as equally as dogmatic of a stance. Michael Knowles is taking a hard stance. They're taking a hard stance. Their hard stance is you can do what you want and whatever you feel on the inside is your truth. His hard stance is that's nonsense. They're both dogmas. It's both dogmas. It's both doctrine. It's both religion.
There were crimes. Well, there was a pretty prominent crime in Loudoun County where a high school student who wore skirts and identified as gender ambiguous would go into the girls' room and he raped 2 girls at 2 different schools. And it was covered up because of the transgender ideology.
See, I can't swear. That's messed up.
It's messed up. It's messed up.
So
I agree.
there, right?
It's interesting. Let's see if we can find this story. Mark Smith was fired as the chief of staff in Loudoun County. So this is recent. The chief of staff Loudoun County after a troubled school district confirmed to local media. So this dude stepped down. Why? Because the case involved a then 14-year-old skirt-wearing boy who attacked a 15-year-old girl in a bathroom in May, but was allowed to transfer to a neighboring school where he struck again.
This is a sickness of the highest order.
It made national headline news that when Scott Smith, the father of first victim, was wrestled to the ground and arrested while trying to raise his concerns at school board meetings, a bust that was then suggested to parents were acting like domestic terrorists. His daughter's attacker last week was put on the registry for the rest of his life, a judge said. So what happened was this dude got sent to another school and did it again, it sounds like. School superintendent's protocol, they had an attacker and was confirmed he was dangerous. Smith was responsible for uploading those title, whatever that is, protocols. Ian Pryor, executive director of the advocacy Fight for School, told the Times Mirror that axing Smith was a positive development, albeit not the right one. Wow. The fact remains that the buck stopped with the superintendent and the former leadership of the school board. This is why this stuff matters, guys. This is why this stuff matters. Because these things happen. They just don't get reported. They just don't get reported.
It's messed up.
So
I agree.
there, right? One example, but
The government deemed parents of the school board as dogmatic terrorists for fighting back.
to generalize that to all.
I'm not opposed to transgenderism because I think some individual who thinks he's transgender is a really rotten fella. In fact, I'm only opposed to transgenderism because of the general fact that a man can't become a woman and a woman can't become a man, because I can know that to be true. And if I can't know that to be true objectively, then I can't really know much of anything at all, right?
They choose, to go through those transformations in order to feel like their soul and their body actually resonate.
And by the way, when we had Arthur on, all of this is on the presupposition that there is a soul. If there's a soul, that means there has to be some sort of other being out there that created us, right? Meaning that the conclusion of this, if there's a soul, that means that the God got it wrong. They got a soul, but God got it wrong.
Is the idea that your true identity is your soul and your body is only incidental to that? That because to even say your true identity, I think, well, your true identity has got something to do with your body. I don't think your true identity has nothing to do with your body, right?
Yeah,
I think
would say that.
We are our souls. And I think, growing up in a Catholic church, I think of myself as my soul. And I think that my body, it's my flesh. It's temporary.
Are you still Catholic, would you say?
No.
No. Because, the Catholic idea is, yes, of course, we are souls in part, but we are also...
Michael is a Catholic, by the way.
Bodies, and that our bodies and souls have a lot to do with one another, and they're inseparable. So, the Catholic idea would be to say that your soul is contradicting your body. That would not go along with the Catholic idea. And it's very interesting that there's this new, maybe religious view, which is that no, our bodies, has nothing to do with our true selves. That view is called Gnosticism, Gnostic dualism.
Yep.
Where really our souls and the body is evil or something like that.
And that's prevalent everywhere. Because if you think about it, the logical conclusion of this is Gnosticism. You are in the wrong body. Therefore, the material body that God gave you is evil, and you need to alter it.
But I just wonder, how do we know that's true? How do you know that you're not really, at least in part, your body?
They always say mind over body, you know? Because your brain, you know, it's the thing that controls, like, everything, you know? Like, sends off, like, these signals and...
But your brain is your body, too. Your mind is not your body. You know, that's the immaterial part, but the brain is part of your body. It's an organ, right?
Well, yeah.
My primary problem with transgenderism is that it isn't true. And because it's false, there are harmful consequences from it.
They're not doing any harm to you.
Yeah, well, I think that sexual dysfunctions cause a lot of harm. The breakdown of the family, the obliteration of women's rights in private spaces, the mutilation of children, which now we're seeing just abound in the country, the sterilization of children. So I think there are a lot of pretty
Did you know
concrete
that hormone
harms.
therapy was made for, like, girls who get their periods at the age of 6? You can go on estrogen and it will go back. It'll
It doesn't.
change
That's what they
things.
tell you, but it's not true. And there are a lot of detransitioners who talk about the lifelong effects that
Lifelong, okay, but it's not...
detransitioners, women who have male pattern baldness and a lowered voice for the rest of their life, and who are sterile, too. I mean, that's tough. You can't
Yeah,
have
and that
kids.
happens. Okay, I probably can't have kids either. I have PCOS. So what?
Do you think we should sterilize more children?
It's not sterilizing kids.
No, that is. We were just talking about it.
It's really not, though. It's stopping them from going through puberty where they don't want to go.
I guess maybe we're just using...
Stopping them from going in puberty indirectly sterilizes them. Then the logical conclusion would be that we are sterilizing them.
Using different terms for the same
Probably,
thing. But in any case,
but-
I appreciate your coming on. and
Oh, I
having-
have something for you. I
Okay.
found it outside. I thought you'd really like it.
Is this a fan letter?
Oh, it is, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot
he
of them
was
out
right.
there.
Radical feminism did ruin my life, and it's me dressed up as an official from the Biden administration, I think. Yeah.
How'd you know? That's crazy.
It would appear I was not able to change the minds of these
Oh,
young students.
my gosh.
But they came, they listened, and they had a conversation. So maybe, just maybe, I was able to plant a seed that could flourish in the future.
Hey man, shout out to Michael Knowles for doing that. He didn't have to do that. I think he did a fantastic job, and I think he demonstrated to a lot of us on the need for stoicism with regards to debating these very polarizing topics. And this is something that I hope to grow in. This is, by the way, why I don't do remote or virtual interviews anymore. I try to do in-person stuff, especially if there's going to be any room for disagreement. It's just better to have these conversations in person, man. It's just better to have these conversations in person.
Hey, this clip is from our daily after party stream. If you enjoyed it, consider signing up for our Patreon community for only $5 a month, where you get access to the replays of our daily after party streams, as well as the uncut extended versions of our podcast, Discord access that's private, and a discount code for our merch store, only $5 a month. And ultimately, it's the best way to help us contextualize the gospel of Jesus using media, podcasting, and of course, YouTube. The link for that is in the description or in the pinned comment. The perks are amazing. You should get on there. It's only $5 a month. I'll see you over there, all right? Peace.